Hey guys, so today we have Brett and Kenzie. So many of you have seen Brett's interview, and Kenzie is here with us today. And this always really excites me because, you know, when I first started this business, right, I was a data science before, but also before that, I was trying to be a chef. And what I loved about my previous jobs was how face to face it was. And so when I cook for someone, right, or when I created some tech to help a company, for example, I can present that tech and I can see the people's face light up and I can see the impacts right away. And I feel like sometimes that's missing from my business here because we're coaching so many people at scale and we're coaching people online too. So it's really nice to have like put a face to what we were trying to create, which is like a relationship that I think a lot of people don't have. But um, I guess Brett and Kenzie, if you could just start with from each of your point of views, what was the relationship like before RR?
Who do you want to go first? You want me
Yeah,
to start?
you go from like your point
Okay.
of view.
So yeah, before, um, I think a lot of what just didn't work in the relationship, um, again, just from my perspective, is I was just so unhappy like about my life in general, but I was like too afraid to admit it. So I would get, just like every little thing that didn't go according to my plan, that wasn't in my control, would just, yeah, get me very frustrated. And it wasn't even necessarily like frustration directed towards Kenzie, but the vibe around like our home was just like, oh, like I have to do everything that Brett wants to do, like everything has to go to plan, or else this is, just going to be this I don't know, like this positivity sucking environment. And yeah, I mean, there was a lot of blame that I also did. Like, I just couldn't stand like messes. I couldn't stand just things not being in order. I guess I would say that.
Mm.
So I think a lot of the things that was really hard for Kenzie to live with is like I'd come from home from work and the house would be messy because our daughter's playing. And, from Kenzie's point of view, it's like, hey, like my daughter's having a great time. I'm playing with her. She has a friend over. Like, this is awesome. And then door opens. What? Like, what is this mess? Like, are you kidding me? Just it's like what started to be like this really fun thing. It's like, oh, well, I guess I can't do that anymore because then he's just gonna lose it.
Mm.
And there's a lot of safety damaged in that perspective of like, I don't know what I can and can't do so that he's not going to just completely like lose his shit.
Yeah. Kenzie, from
Um,
your perspective,
yeah.
because we've heard from Brett a lot.
Yeah.
You're like, we know. From my perspective, I mean, even from the first week we were married, and this is kind of off context, but I don't know if anyone can relate to this. So we both grew up Mormon, and for anybody who doesn't really know, like you in our cult in not we're not really Mormon anymore, but when from our culture growing up, you get engaged, you get married, like if it's longer than like a year, people are like, why are you waiting so long? Like just get married. And whether, and like you can't have sex before you're married. So whether that like contributes or what, or if it's just a cultural thing, I don't know. But we didn't live together before we got married. We didn't, I mean, we waited kind of long. We waited like a whole year before we got married, which was abnormal. Um, but so we just like, it was like we were married and then we started living together. And, that's kind of like, it's hard in and of itself, but I remember just like even within the first week of us being married, we were like putting furniture together and one tiny thing would like make him explode. And I remember being like, whoa, calm down. Like this isn't a big
Yeah.
deal. Or, and then just little things like that. I mean, it's completely different from like seeing someone every day to actually living with someone. And so I think right off the bat, I was like, what what did I get myself into kind
Like,
of thing,
did I
which is
marry a
really, and I
monster?
remember,
Like, did I
yeah.
marry a monster? Like, what?
Yeah. And I remember just being like, no, don't think that. It's fine. Like, this is just, and I grew up with a kind of a explosive, abusive father. And so, to me, this is kind of just like normal. Like, I learned from my mom just to people please, like, just let it go, swallow it. It's fine. Um, and then, I think eventually I kind of just got used to it and just kind of got used to having a bully, I guess. And during this time of us being married, I was also, just from like a personal side note, going through like eating disorder treatment where I was anorexic and trying to find self-love again. And so, in me turning to love myself, he just kind of became my new bully. And so, it kind of just, I swallowed it, internalized it, and then just as me learning to heal, it just got to the point where I was like, I cannot have this negative energy around me anymore. And I think as I healed, it was just pushing it out. Like he traveled a lot for work, and when he was gone, life was awesome for me and my daughter. Like we could just hang loose, like it was fine. And then when he'd come on home on the weekends, we'd walk on eggshells again. And I mean, it was from the tiniest things of you never knew when he was gonna get frustrated about something and it's not even like the anger aspect. It was he wasn't present in our lives. He was either unhappy about something we were doing or he was just to himself. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
he even for the birth of our daughter, he was there physically, but he wasn't there. Up for like the first year of her life, it was really hard for me. I feel like I'd have to be like, come on, hold her, like, don't you want to hold her? And he would just do it because he felt like he had to. Like he just wasn't there present. And when he was, it was negative. It was not pleasant. And so that's kind of just from my side how
Yeah.
it was. And then eventually got to the point where my body physically, it was like I physically just couldn't have them in there anymore. And so I was like, you need to get out, like, you know.
So I hear this from a lot of other wives that I talk to. I think the hardest part, because like we often think when someone is about to or breaking apart in the relationship and the relationship's not working out, we think it's the big issues that are causing it. So we think it's like the moments when Brett is super negative or super abusive in a way. But that's not actually, I think, what makes it the worst part. I think what makes it the worst part is really the what you said, which is like the moderate stuff where
Mhm.
I feel bad, but I don't really know why I'm feeling bad. I can't really pinpoint exactly what Brett is doing that is making me feel bad, which makes it hard for you because then you cannot talk to other people about it. Like you
Mhm.
tell your story to other people and they're like, what are you unhappy about? Like
Mhm.
Brett is doing this, Brett is doing that. He's not like, like beating you up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's worse. But then you're like, okay, I mean, I understand that's worse, but it could also be better, but I'm also not happy. And so you start to feel
Yeah.
this guilt for not feeling happy. And so that's what I think a part of you also said, just live with it. Just learn to live with it. Like,
It's
but
kind of one of those like the term like death by a thousand cuts. You don't have a black eye to show for it, but internally you are drowning, you know? And I would tell my friends like situations like, do you like see this with your husband? They'd be like, no. Like, and that's when I started to realize that things were like maybe not normal. Or I would see the way that their husbands would treat them and I'd be like, oh, I wish I had that,
Mhm.
you know? And so I think it is like, and my friend said that to me once. She's like, you don't have a black eye to show for it, but you have a thousand cuts inside and you're just drowning, you know? It's those little things. And for me, like where I am more of a people pleaser, I swallow things and then would randomly blow up and Brett would be like, whoa, like, and like, I can't take it anymore. And yeah, it's just kind of like goes in that cycle.
Yeah. And I think, Brett, that was what I think allowed you to keep blind for so long is that, you know, you weren't seeing this moderate bad things that you were doing as like the make or break. It's like, yeah, sure, I'm not perfect all the time. Sure, I'm mediocre or maybe even under mediocre, but I'm not that bad.
Yeah.
Relax,
Yeah.
right? Um, but for people hearing this, that's actually think the biggest killers because I get so many people saying to me like, I didn't do anything that bad, right? But it's not those things. It's the small leaks. It's the tiny things that actually makes it worse for someone like Kenzie because now it's I feel unhappy. Now it's also like I cannot share about my happiness because it's really hard to convey or to articulate what I'm feeling. To articulate the thousand cuts, it makes you feel very lonely in this process. And then you add guilt on top of that. That's the worst thing. And then, to tack on that too, you only live one life, right, Kenzie? So I'm sure when you were a little girl, Mormon or not, you dreamt of like what that prince would be, what that relationship would be, and you realize, okay, that's not reality. That's not that was childhood dreams, like trying to be a
Mhm.
fireman, right? Forget it.
Yes.
Now I just need to realize like life is shit. So you just kind of just curb your enthusiasm in a way, curb your expectations, right? And you just say, okay, I'm not going to settle for the unhappy, but it's that adds another dimension to it where it makes it difficult to live with congruence in your life because here you are
Mm.
trying to thrive as a human being, but you just decided to place that glass ceiling. And it's a very difficult thing psychologically that I don't think a lot of people can express,
Hmm.
you know?
Well, and watching my parents' relationship growing up, like my mom swallowed things. My mom and my dad would be yelling or screaming, and she would just sit there calm. And I think I learned a lot from that too. Like, you just swallow it, you let them have their moment. They're obviously having a bad time,
Mm.
so you just deal with it. And so, I didn't have a different relationship of, oh, you know what, this is actually what it could be, you know?
Yeah.
And so I just figured
Until
this
until
marriage.
Brett went away for the weekdays, and then you were like, "Oh my God, this is so much better!" And now you have something to compare to, and you're like, and that's something that people to should understand too, right? If because we also get this thing where sometimes people join our program and then they're joining the program because their partner is on the brink of divorce or already divorced, whatever it is, and then they see their partner out living their best life without them finally. And a part of them is destroyed because of that, because they're like, oh my God, my partner is thriving without me. But that's not a bad thing. That could be a good thing because that is, I think those realizations is what eventually led you to consider even the program, right? Like, what made you join the program? Just to say in front of Kenzie too, right? Because something must have
Yeah.
happened, something must have clicked. Because like a lot of people struggle with what you guys are struggling, but then they don't take the leap to go, let me seek help, let me find something. What made you want to pay the money, put your money where your mouth is, invest energy, invest your time into this?
Yeah, well, Kenzie had been telling me for probably over a year from the time that we split up that I needed to like find my own help. Um, because she had been through a lot of personal therapy, with eating disorders, but then many, many other reasons on top of that. Like she was seeking out her own help. And then we did couples therapy to like try and figure something out between us. But Kenzie was always just like, please, just like go find something. And I was always like, oh, it costs too much money. You know? Um, so then it wasn't, I guess I needed like the slap in the face to end all slaps, right? Like she finally just like, I can't do this anymore. I need you to leave.
And it was like the most random time. We were like, our daughter
Yeah.
got a new bed. It was like a breaking
We're
point. Our daughter got a new bed, and we were sitting there on the ground putting it together. And I was like, you gotta go.
yeah.
It was like I don't know. I've been like thinking about it for a week, and somehow in that, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah,
but
that's
somehow in
okay.
that moment, I was just like, you need to get the hell out. Like,
Yeah, I was like,
anyways,
oh,
it was
okay.
funny. It
So
was just kind of random.
I was like, okay, I'll just spend the night at the Marriott, and then I'll come back tomorrow. Like honestly, I was like, oh, it'll just be like a couple days, both
Yeah.
of us think about it, but it's like, no. So she's like, asking me to do something, and then when she finally asked me to leave, it's like, oh, okay, fine, like I'll do this. It's
Yeah.
like, Oh, really? Like, okay. So she had me go out and like find a therapist, and I guess while I was doing that, I'm just like some of the things that, Kenzie told me when we separated was like I need, like some of the common phrases you hear, like I need space, like this just I need time to think, and I'd go onto YouTube and be like, so what does this like really mean? Because like I just didn't know. And I started finding your videos, um and I can't tell you what the first couple of ones I saw, but it was like, holy cow, like this is exactly like what is my situation. And I just felt like your videos spoke to me like very personally.
Mm.
And then when I go to therapy, it's just like, so tell me what's going on. And I talk for 20 minutes and it's like, okay, well, we have about 15 minutes left. I'm like, well, this was like a complete waste of my time. I can go call my brother and vent to him for half an hour and it'd be free.
Yeah.
So I'd be like talking to the therapist. I'm like, dude, like you gotta challenge me here. Like I need more than just tell me about how you feel. It's like I actually want you to challenge me. Like, why do you think this way? Why do you think you do these things? Because I don't know. And like I want somebody's perspective on like, hey, maybe tell me why I do the things that I do. And like I like couldn't get that. And so while it was great that like I was doing that, and I think it maybe helped uncover like some deeper things, but in a very like shallow way. I just felt like the videos that I was watching on YouTube was like, I was just like, this is it. Like, this just makes sense to me. And it seems like it would be a lot more permanent.
Yeah.
And so then I did your master class, and then it's, at the end, it's like, so here's how you sign up. And the money to me, honestly, like, I had something in mind of like what it might be. And when it was revealed like how much it is to sign up, I'm just like I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I
What?
don't care because I can't put a price on my family. I can't put a price on my relationship. And my mindset at the time was like, I will literally like I have to like do anything to try to like save this. And like I would live with a lot of regret if I didn't do it because then it's like, well, like I really didn't try that hard.
Mm.
So I really the mindset at the time was like I will turn over like any stone and like if this doesn't work then hey like I really went for it and I can't ever like be ashamed of that.
So there's two angles of like, so three follow-up questions, right? So number one was around the money aspect of it, because the thing I say to people is like, the price of the program is really just the price of like of a beat up old car, if you think about it,
Yeah.
right? It's like, so I kind of reference that to people and go, okay, so you're saying the relationship is not worth a beat up old car? All right, then fair. Go for it. Do whatever you want then, right? But just for people to put into perspective, it's just a beat up old car. And there was this really great one of my mentors, right? He did this. He got one of those like street interviews thing, like what me because he looks wealthy, so he's um, like what was your secret to being wealthy or whatever? And then took up his backpack and he goes, if I wanted to sell you this backpack for $10,000, would you take it? And the guy says, of course not. And I go, that's why you're poor, because you never asked what's in the bag, right? Because if the bag had 100,000, $10,000, screw it, let's do it, right? And so it's kind of brings me to the second point, which is around you seemed very convinced that what was in the bag, in a sense, was worth way more than what you could ever pay for it. What gave
Uh-huh.
you that conviction when you signed up?
So we're still talking about like before I really actually like dove into anything. Is
Sure.
that
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um I don't know, like I guess just the whole concept of like the bulletproof vest of like, hey, like what if there's a life you could live where you don't actually have to be upset. You don't have to like act out of things. It's like, wow, like that'd be really cool.
But what made
And
you believe that I could give that to you?
I don't know, just I mean I don't know, like it's hard to say like, why I believed in it, but I did just um I don't know, just everything that I mean I watched like 20 or 30 videos or so before I actually signed up. I was watching your videos for a month and I don't know, just every one of them there wasn't a video where I'm like, nah, like that's crazy. It's like everything was just like this just makes like so much sense. So it was kind of like a logical step for me to take, but also like the emotions in me was like I felt like the videos like I was really like the feelings I had at the time when I watched the videos, I felt like they were kind of like validated, I guess.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
I felt certain way, like I felt like I was losing everything, like everything's so much on the line and what do I do? Like it's hopeless for me to ever change. And I don't know, just the videos spoke to me in a way that's like kind of calmed those feelings
yeah.
and maybe like put it in a way that's like, no, it's actually not impossible. Like it just requires work, but like there's nothing unique about your case. I think it was really that, like the fact that people had it much worse than me. Um, and they like found success within themselves in the relationship. Like to me, I was like, yeah, like things aren't great, but like I'm certainly not in like that person's shoes. And
Yeah.
if it worked for them, like I bet it could work for me.
I think it's also a part of it is if you look at the YouTube videos too, it's very in depth. So like 40-minute
Mhm.
videos is a common thing.
Yeah.
And I think I try to figure out how to make you understand, hey, what you're feeling, what you're going through, it's not some mysterious thing. It's actually, there's a science behind it. There's like a philosophy behind it. So I break down the philosophy and then kind of build it up. I think some people look at that in-depth video and they say, for example, oh, you make relationships so hard. No, it's not me making it hard. The more you understand something, why something is happening to you, the more you can understand what to do about it, right? Did that help you to understand too of like, okay, the depth, the understanding of what I'm going through or being able to understand what I'm going through helps me see kind of a light out and a path upward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like what's said day one when you join, it's like when you understand the why and the how behind something, like the what behind it is almost like that'll just take care of itself. And so all these problems that I was facing, I always be like, well, how do you like figure that out? Like, I don't know, like why is this happening and all this stuff. And I felt like the videos gave me a sense of like, yeah, here's the problem, but like here's how you can actually like resolve that
Mm.
problem. And this is why we think of it this way. And it's like, oh, that makes so much sense rather than just like, hey, tell me how you're feeling.
Yeah.
You
Kenzie, for you, when did you find out Brett would join the program? And what was your reaction to it? What were your thoughts in running through your head?
Honestly, we weren't like really talking all that much, but it's funny because like a few days before I kicked him out, we were supposed to go to the Caribbean with his parents. And obviously I was like, I'm not going. So Brett went alone with his parents. And so it was a good time to like have a break. And then I don't know, he kind of came back and was like, I found like this thing. And he was kind of telling me about it. And I was like, okay. I don't know. Honestly, like if you want my like full honesty, I was kind of like, this isn't like licensed therapists
know? Yeah.
proven, because that's what I had gone through and it had helped me. So I was honestly a little bit kind of like skeptical. Like this isn't like actual therapy. This is just people saying, like I don't know. And so, but he was like so pumped about it. And so, for me, I was like, if this you know you better than anyone. If you feel like this is gonna what's gonna help you, like give it a try. Like, and he wouldn't tell me, I don't know how it like came up, but like he didn't want to tell me how much it cost. And it's funny because it isn't that much money, but this just goes to show you like Brett has a hard time like with spending money. So for him to like put money into this is like a huge deal.
I'm a cheapskate.
A huge deal. Like part of our problem before was anytime I had to use his credit card, I would have to ask him first, like, hey, I need to use your credit card for this much. Is that okay? Which that's another story. But for him to like go out and spend money, I was like, oh, he's serious. Like he means business with this. And so deep down, I was kind of like, I don't know if this is gonna work. But at the same time, like I was happy he had found something and he seemed so confident in it that I was like, go for it.
Mm.
And so yeah, that's kind of what I thought. And then as he got more and more into it and started practicing, obviously I saw like he was like starting to change and do things, and I was just like, I didn't trust it. I didn't trust,
Yeah,
you
so
know.
let's get to that a little bit, right?
Okay.
So, um, and I don't know how much you want to share about this one, so feel free to share however much you want. But I'm interested to understand your headspace in this one because I think things were bad between you two when I think Brett joined the program. I think it's gotten to the point where Brett, you were saying it wasn't just a 2 day move out; it was a long move out. Like,
Yeah, like she actually picked me up from the airport after my vacation, and I was like, we had FaceTimed every day while I was gone, see my daughter, tell her about, the cool things that I was doing. And I remember she picked me up, and I was like, oh, like, guess I'm going home. And then we pull up to my parents, and she's like, yeah, no,
you're not going
this,
home.
I can't really give you a timeline on when you can come back. And I just like, oh, like, why? I just like crumbled in the moment, just like, I don't want to lose you, and like all this stuff. And it's, she's probably just like, oh my gosh. But yeah,
I
that's
was
what,
fed up.
yeah.
Yeah. And there was, I think, for lack of a better word, I think you met someone else, Kenzie, did you? Or there was someone else?
Yeah. I wouldn't really say like met someone else. So there's this guy at work who was also separated from his wife. And we became I was fairly new to working at this place, and when things kind of started going down, so I was still like meeting people. And as I met this guy, he was like kind of telling me his situation. I was like, I'm in the same boat. And so we kind of became really, really close friends of, you know what, like let's like talk. Like it was nice to be able to talk to somebody who knew what I was going through and was going through the exact same thing. And so we would like kind of help each other, and he would tell me things that his wife did that pissed him off, and I'd be like, "Oh, maybe she's feeling this way." Or, so it was nice to be able to like kind of converse with somebody, and we became really good friends um over this.
Mm.
And it was nice to have somebody to talk to about it,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah. It was what we call bordering on emotional affair, I would say.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. For
Um,
sure. And I am like naturally like growing up I had a lot of guy friends. I grew up with brothers. So to me like it seemed normal like to have a guy friend, but
people
it
label
was
it.
like we
Yeah.
were definitely developing like emotional, I don't know, bonding, safety between each other. Like it was so nice to be able to talk to somebody about this. And I mean, I had my friends, but they were still married and I didn't feel like they could fully understand. But
Yeah.
somehow we had like a really unique emotional connection that was safe for me. And so it was nice.
And so when Brett told you about this program, I'm sure the skepticism was one feeling you had,
Yeah.
but I'm sure there was a bit of like apathy too, a bit of like, oh, like was yeah. What other feeling? Because knowing that context, right? There must have been maybe a bit of anger to be like, why is he why is he finding things now when we've been struggling with this for a long time? There was a bit of maybe like apathy where you don't want it to work because then you would have to put yourself in this position where you would have to reconsider the relationship again and try and invest yourself into it again.
100%.
What was it? Was all of that there plus plus? Yeah, tell me more.
Yeah, that was definitely there. I honestly, at this point, when I kicked him out, it felt so good to have him gone. I feel so terrible saying this. I'm so sorry.
That's great.
But it felt so good to have him gone that I was literally like, it was done. Like, I was finally happy. I could breathe. Life between me and my daughter. I mean, we've always just been the best of buds, just naturally. And I think a lot of it is because Brett wasn't really present in a lot of her life, her first 4 years. And we just became close and it was so nice. And honestly, I was like looking at apartments. I was looking I was talking to my boss, like, can I get more hours? This was done. I was finally like free. I could breathe. And I think that that was kind of my answer of your life is better with him out.
Mhm.
And it would take a freaking miracle to invite him back in. And, in my head, I think I still was holding on to like a little bit of hope. But in my head, all I knew was it was better that he was gone.
Mm.
And that's it. That's how I wanted it.
Because I think for you too, if you, let's say, reconsider the relationship again, and let's say you were disappointed again, I think that's a really hard thing to forgive yourself on. It's like, what a fucking idiot. I made the move, right? I
Yeah.
made the move and I was too cowardly to commit to the move, and now I'm back here, square one again. And that's, I think, would be a hard nightmare for you to confront.
Yeah.
So Brett, when you joined the program, right? We tell you from the beginning, it's not gonna be uphill. It's gonna be downhill first because you're gonna go through what we call the paradox of change, where things get harder. Because
Yeah.
Kenzie does have a lot of reasons and every right to resist, to make it hard, because she needs it to believe it for herself, kind of thing. And so I'm guessing you found a lot of this stuff, right? Just how done she was, how committed she was to leaving and starting her own life and investing in her own life without you. And then you find this other person is kind of trying to win her over emotionally as well. What was going through your mind at that point
Yeah,
when you
did you
joined the
like really
program and
know
I
then
didn't even
about
know.
this other guy?
I knew
I
the
okay.
don't say his name, but I think I had talked to him about it before, like, there's this guy at work that's like really fun to work with, like we get along, and
Yeah, I never
I don't think we
thought
ever
like
really talked
anything
about
about
it like
it.
in depth.
I was like, hey, I'm
Not
glad.
because it was like a secret, it was just
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'm glad you have a friend. That's basically where my mindset was.
Because you
'Cause
were just all into the work that you need to do. You're like, I don't care what she's doing. It's like, doesn't matter. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's like, what you were gung ho and like, here's what I need to do. I don't really care what's happening on that side.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it took a little bit. It's like when you first join the program, the very first thing you learn about, or at least one of them, is all the victim mindsets that have basically just run your life for years. And the first one that I started to work on was like equal blame. How I put like so much blame on Kenzie for not doing certain things.
Mm.
Um, and it took like a few iterations of going through that, with the coach to be like, hey, like, great that you're putting all this down, but like let's think about this a little deeper. And I think when it just like really hit me of like, oh my gosh, like I was doing that. Like, I don't know, it just like built on itself. It's like wow, like I can't believe that. Like, and then it just grew to like, wow, like what else can I like learn here? Like what else uh yeah, can I just I don't know, just like what else can I do with this? And it just like kept building, then you learn about, the process of untethering. And yeah, like honestly, for it was maybe like 2 months in to joining or so, like a month or two. I was just like, yeah, like I was just focused on like doing my own stuff. And and again, I didn't know like what this guy was, I was just like, oh, it's a friend. Like I have a friend who is a female at work that I really like to talk to. And we're both like, oh, that's great. Like I'm glad that we have someone that we can like talk to.
Yeah.
But it's just like, like if it's like if I build myself up, if I become this person that, quote unquote is, irreplaceable, like, yeah, like, does any of it matter? Like, does any of it matter that like there's another person that's emotionally there for her? It's like she's allowing him to be emotionally there for him because I was never emotionally
Yeah.
available for her. So there was like a void in that. And like this guy was feeling that. And like at the time it's like, hey, like I'm just really glad that you finally feel like that you have like someone to connect to emotionally. And I'm just gonna keep doing my stuff. Like that's just kind of where I was at the point.
What advice would you give to someone who's maybe facing the same similar thing where they have a partner who's maybe having an emotional affair, maybe even sometimes a physical affair? Um, and if they're honest, right, it's really that, yeah, sure, you can label the affair as wrong or however you want to label it as, but at the end of the day, they know that they just didn't kind of do their thing. They didn't do their job, but they have such a hard time accepting that,
Yeah.
Like if you were standing in front of someone who's just like there emotionally, what would you say? Like,
Honestly, well, because of the this is without me thinking really. This is the most very impulsive thing for me to say right now is just like cut the shit, man. Like honestly, I just be like cut the shit because like if you're truly honest with yourself, which I don't think a lot of men are honest with themselves. Honestly, like I wasn't. I was never truly honest with myself until the questions that are asked within, the worksheets we do early on, the reinterpretation, structure. That was probably like the first time I was actually honest with myself on like, I did these things,
mhm.
but I never could fully accept or admit that I did these things before. And it's just like, yeah, cut the bullshit, man. Like if you're, and it's just like, yeah, if your ex or your wife or your, whatever, if they're out with another person, like doesn't that actually kind of say more about you? It's
Yeah.
like that you're not able to fulfill that for her. Like if you were, she wouldn't be out with this person. She'd be
And
with you.
the thing I always say to people too is like, okay, so if your partner's having an affair, whatever kind, it's either one or two things. Either your partner is just an asshole, right? Or there's something, your partner's not an asshole, and there's something that drove her to feel like that's the only choice she got. Or like she's craving something, which means that she's not getting something. So if you think that you've done everything you can to create the perfect relationship and that your partner, the only reason your partner's having an affair is that she's an asshole, then ironically, that's why she left. Like imagine if someone thinks so lowly of you to the point where like, no, you did something bad. The only reason I can think of is you suck, right? You're so animalistic. You're such a dick that you did this because I gave everything. If that's how you think about your partner, then how good of an environment could you have created exactly? Like it's very ironic. It's very paradoxical. So the only thing is like look within, man, because like I don't think I've ever met a client whose wives were like whose partners were like impossible. Every time I talk to someone and they paint their wives as this like evil person, and I talk to their wife, I'm like, you sound like a perfectly normal human being to me. Like you're normal. What,
Yeah.
you know? So just think about that, people, right? So Kenzie, for you, um, at what point would you say, and here's something that I want to stress too, like whenever I talk to people who had affairs, well, yours wasn't a physical affair, it was an emotional one, but whatever kind. I don't think anybody goes into it happy. Like, I don't think people go like, ho, let me just have fun with this. Like, I think there's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of like mixed feelings involved. What were your mixed feelings here?
Yeah, definitely mixed feelings. Definitely like, I don't know. It's hard to like think back. I feel like talking about all this stuff, like, I think mentally I've just kind of like put it away just because
Shut
it
it
was such
out.
a
Yeah,
hard
redacted it.
time.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, it was such a
Yeah.
hard time. And I think naturally your brain is just kind of like, let's not think about that again. I, I think during that time, like, I just, again, like, I wasn't really aware that it was becoming like an emotional affair, so to say. But all I know is that it felt good to be able to communicate with a man who was nice and who, um, showed interest in like saw my side and
Made you feel safe. Made you
100%.
feel understood. Made you feel like you exist. You
Yeah.
belong. That your feelings and processing inside is actually like legit and not, you're not crazy. You're not,
Hmm.
yeah. At what point though did so like I want to just close off on this one too, because I always say to people, right? Because a lot of men get really upset when their wives is like, met others, another person, seeing another person, talking to another person, whatever it is. And I'm always say to them, if you really put yourself in their shoes, it's not like they often have a lot of conflicting feelings to where they're basically saying the guilt that I feel and the the mental dissonance that I feel about who I wanted to be and what I'm actually acting as, that cost is nothing compared to the benefit of running away from this relationship
Yeah.
thing. So think about that for a sec, right? Like your partner knows the cost of whatever she's about to do, but if she
Hmm.
does it, you have to realize, man, I must have destroyed that environment of the relationship so much to the point where the benefit of escaping that outweighs whatever cost. And the cost is a lot, right? So just think about that. People reflect on that. But at what point did you start to see Brett's changes in the program and you thought, there's something here? What?
Hmm.
Because you said earlier it would take a miracle for me to even like express
It
myself.
was.
So what were the miracles you saw?
Just like little by little, like I think I would let him like stay a little longer at the house. He was staying at his parents and I mean he would like stay for like a couple days and I'd be like, I need a break. I need to think about things, and he would respect that and he would leave again. But there was a time when I don't know if you remember this, but he was packing up to go and I just started to cry and I was like, I don't want you to go. I was like, wait, we had fun. Like for once in 9 years, 8 years, we had fun and we could like relax. I don't even remember what we did or like
We
what
like
it
went to
was.
like Ulta and then we like went to Target and then we just went shopping.
And
I
it was
absolutely
like,
remember all of this. I remember all of this.
I don't even, I mean, he remembers, but I don't even remember. I just remember him like having a suitcase and he's going out the garage. And I was like, I don't want you to go, but I wanted time to think. So I was like, yeah, I think it's okay for you to go, but I want to like think about this because this is weird that I don't want you to go.
Yeah.
And it was just like little things like that. And I think kind of like what we were talking, and if I'm like fast forwarding, just stop me, but he would like show different changes or like I'd be talking about something and he'd show more interest and I'd be like, stop. You're being annoying. Like, I know you're just trying to like implement things in your program and like you're just acting like you're interested. Like, just stop. And a lot of things he would do are like actions. Even to this day, like if I'm being honest, like I have a hard time like trusting. Like, I think it's gonna take a long time before that trust is like, oh, you know what? This is him now.
Yeah.
For it to like take effect. But at first I was like, cut the shit. Like, stop acting like a different person. You're bugging me and stuff, but at the same time it felt good, like what he was doing, you know? And so I it was that moment where I was like, I don't know why I don't want you to go, but I don't want you to go. And so it was more like feelings. There wasn't anything like specific that I could say that all I knew is like things were getting better. And like even though I didn't trust it all the way, it felt good.
So
And
I
then
don't know how much Brett shares of the program. Does the
a
Brett share
little bit, like I
a
know
little
kind of
bit?
like basics, but
Okay. So we're gonna unveil the curtain a bit, right? To like what Brett did. And so the first thing that, I think it's important for people to realize here is that nothing we talk about is tactical, right? Everything we talk about is like becoming. You become this. So it's almost like if someone, the best way to think about it is if someone, if your partner was to be able to like plant this invisible camera at any point in your life, right? If she watches at random points in your life, what would she see? Basically, what you do when you think no one's watching will define basically who you are, kind of thing, right? So we try to get our clients to understand basically the program and master the program to the point where they live it, where they can live like as if someone's watching them and live and do the correct things all the time, but it doesn't feel like work. That's the thing, like because it's just what you do, right? And I think from your perspective, Kenzie, is more like you're also watching and sometimes you don't even know what you're seeing, what you're feeling, but you're like, I kind of like that. I kind of don't like that. I kind of, and you're also watching at random moments too, and you're trying to see what is Brett doing when he thinks no one's watching. And then what is the
mhm.
stuff he's doing that you feel like he cannot fake. And that's the small things that you see that's like that's what counts.
Mhm.
And so when you saw and when you felt that those moments were like, even when you resisted Brett, for example, to say like, stop doing this, and you can feel Brett is just like, what? I'm not even trying to do anything. What are you?
Stop doing what?
And then you see this not only in that instance, but like in future instances too. And you were like, maybe this is him now. That's the trust. Yeah. And what Brett did was basically like, I think, so the untethering was a big deal in that. I'm sure Brett, victim mindset, getting rid of it. And I sense a bit of like expanding your band of operations, right? Of becoming more water, and even just like frameworking and just talking differently in a different way and just making that who you are. And the thing we like to say, Kenzie, is like, you're going to be a magician, meaning when you're a magician, you know exactly what you're doing, but the audience will not. The audience will feel certain things. They won't know why they're feeling it. They won't know what you did, but they'll feel something. And
Mhm.
that's what Brett was trying to become, basically a magician in a way, where it's like, I think you knew what you were doing. Like you knew why Kenzie
I mean,
felt.
I was very clunky at times too, where even Kenzie, there was one time Kenzie would be like, "Will you just stop? Like, I know this is just one of those things that you do in your program, and just stop." Like,
It would just feel like
there
it's
was one
natural.
time.
And like I think I had like I was trying to like have like a lot of
Yeah.
empathy. Like he's trying, okay? And I think that's what was most important was he's actually doing something and I'm gonna let him try. And I respected a lot of that. Even though sometimes it would be like repetitive. He'd like say the same things over and over, and I'd just be
Yeah.
like, I know what you're
Yeah.
gonna say.
Yeah.
I know. And so I mean I think we've gotten to a point where like we have gained like trust and like I can be like, Brett, stop. Like,
Yeah.
like I try not to be like shy about it and tell him exactly like how I'm feeling. And like I think that's it's gonna take practice for him. It's not just gonna naturally just happen. It's gonna take practice. And he was an asshole, and for him to like not be an asshole, that's weird, and so and for him not to say like assholey things, like that's weird. And so I think it for a while, and even sometimes now, it can feel a little bit like rehearsed or and but I think what it's important to know is like they're trying and it's gonna take practice. And I think I had a lot of respect for him for trying. Because
Yeah.
I know a lot of men out there wouldn't. They would be like, well, you know what? I suck at this then, and I'm just gonna give up.
And that's the
But
thing,
I
right?
think,
Like, I think that's so crucial to touch on
yeah,
because so there's two things you said there, which is like one is like the intent is there. The intent is there. The intent is pure. But also it's I don't know if this is how you feel, Brett, but and Kenzie, correct me if I'm wrong too, but I think it's one thing, for example, to see your partner trying, but if you see that they're trying and they're like seeing the trying as like a chore, like you can tell they don't enjoy it, they don't like it. It's like, oh my God, I gotta do this. Oh my God, I gotta listen to you right now. Right?
yeah,
You can see someone trying, but if they're trying reluctantly out of obligation, it doesn't feel right. But
yeah.
the fact that Brett is trying this and he feels like he's actually excited about this. He actually likes doing this. He's not good at it yet at some point, but it's like I can tell he likes it kind of thing. How much did that make an impact into you seeing his trying in a positive light?
Yeah, for sure. It was something he was pumped about, something that he thought, he knew was gonna work for him, and I was seeing it work before my eyes. Like I go off a lot of like feeling. And during this time, like trying to like gain my intuition, and from what I was feeling, it was good. And his intent was pure. Like it's cute now, like going back and thinking about like certain things, like, oh, you were so cute, you were trying. And but yeah, I think the intent has to be there. And the fact that the intent was there and that he was trying showed that he really did want to be with me. I think that's like the bottom line of I was able to see he is probably like kind of uncomfortable right now, trying to like really dig deep into my feelings and the things I'm telling him about right now. And he's trying to respond in the correct way. If he didn't care about me, he wouldn't give a shit. He wouldn't care to like try so hard to respond in the perfect way. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
so I think that was kind of like deep down, like, you know what? He's trying because he cares. And I think women can definitely sense when you care and when you don't, because before he wasn't, and I think without doubt, I know Brett's always loved me. That's like, I've never for a second, no matter how many, like how bad he treated me, like I always knew he loved me, but now he had the correct tools to be able to show, make me feel emotionally safe, all that to be able to have me trust it too,
Because I
before
see
he
some
didn't have
people,
that.
yeah, and I see some men sometimes who are even in the program, and you see this sometimes, are Brett. You see men who are doing the thing, they're going through the motions of like learning the stuff and doing the stuff, but you can tell it's still work to them, right? As soon as they get sick, as soon as they get busy, they relapse and they go like, "Oh, I forgot to do the program," kind of thing. And those are the kind of things that you do that you makes your partner go like, "Do you actually like this, man?" Like, and if you don't like this, how much longer can you do this exactly? How much longer can you fake this? Because if you don't enjoy this, then you're gonna wanna weigh out all the time. And so that untethering piece is so crucial because like if you don't learn to love the process of becoming intrinsically and these things intrinsically, then you can say or do the right things, but it's just gonna have a tinge of fishiness that nobody can ever feel good at because they're gonna think, how much longer can you do this exactly? It's
Yeah.
so miserable.
Yeah, and we even talked about this last night a little bit. Because we were just talking about, how each other are feeling coming into the interview. I've done a few of these. This is Kenzie's first time. So, just how do you feel about going into this and stuff? And so I kind of just like shared, the general outline of like what we're taught in here. And I was just like, so I just, it's like I don't know if this is what you're thinking, but like, as I'm sharing this, I could see how like a lot of people could see an outline as like, the outline of this program, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to build is like it could be come across as like very manipulative because it is emotionally like based. And yeah, that's emotions are very it can be very easily to manipulate. And so I was like, like I understand if like you think that. I don't know if you do, but like if you do, I understand that. But like the intention of all of this is not to be manipulative, because if it was manipulative, you would know that. Like if I was doing this to be manipulative, like it would cost me so much more than like even where I was when we first separated. Like it would be, you know, destroy all trust, like betray all trust and all that. So it's like if it was manipulative, like first, like I know that you'd be able to sense it. And like it would backfire so hard. It's like why, yeah, it's like why risk that, you know? But if it's like genuine, then it comes, yeah, from like a totally different feel. And I was like, and I'm, like she said, like practicing. It's like, like it might be clunky, it might be kind of weird, but like like that's why I keep working at it so that I can just better show up for the family, build myself and in turn like be able to just, I don't know, live a life that would be easy for someone to share.
Yeah. And Kenzie, I understand from your perspective too, because there are a lot of very manipulative programs out there and coaches out there. I mean, we have one right now who's literally trying to steal our curriculum. And all he does is just teach tactics, right? He doesn't teach a lot of the internal stuff and making it genuine. He doesn't really care, to be honest. And from what I understand too, he even records testimonials that are fake. And then when people ask him to take it down, he's like, he refuses. I'm like, how do you? So I understand if that's, par for the course. You look at this program and you say, it kind of smells the same. It kind of has kind of similar outlines. Must be kind of the same thing. Must be a duck too, right? But I always say to my clients too, right? It's like, I think women want a man who is working on himself, not because he's weak, but because he's strong. Meaning, the action can look the same, right? But the intention in which you take the action will change it completely. If you like, a person can be doing the frameworks, doing the program from a bad intention, the action will look exactly the same as the action of a guy who's doing it with good intention.
Yep.
And you would think because the action looks the same, it doesn't matter. But people are very good at sniffing out intentions. And like Brett said, right, if you have a wrong intention here, which is why in the program, when we see people having the wrong intention, when we see people using the program for like manipulation, whatever it is, we go fucking hard on them. We rain on their whole lives, right? We just like want to make them see you cannot do this. And that's where the tough love comes in. Brett, you would know that we give a lot of that stuff, right? We wake people up a lot because for me, it's like I don't want to do this to create manipulative men because I know how that it can easily go there too. Um,
Yeah.
I think the other thing too for you too was that was interesting in that story was also how whenever you resisted Brett, it's like stop playing this act, whatever it is. I think seeing Brett being able to continue doing it nonetheless really helped in you eventually developing that trust. Because I see some people, what they do is they go like this, right? Oh my God, Jeff, I'm telling you, like I'm all into this program, right? Like I want to do this. I want to do this for myself. I'll do anything to grow myself. And then the next day their partner goes like, yeah, okay, just don't grow for me. Pick someone else. We're over. And within a day, they go from whoa to fine then. If she says there's no hope, then forget it. But I'm like imagine if you resisted Brett, stop it, Brett, and Brett goes, okay, I'll stop it. Then you're like, you see, I
Yeah.
I knew it was fake. Like because upon the slightest resistance, you're like, okay, I'll back down then. But if you don't back down, if you double down, you're like, okay, at some point you're like, okay, I think he really likes this. I think he wants to do this. So you're gonna lean in further. What was going through your mind when you kept seeing Brett like continue this thing?
Yeah, I think because I remember multiple times like telling him, "Don't do this for me. Don't do this for me." Because I think deep down I was like, "We're getting divorced." Like, but like honestly, and I've been telling him for years, like you're not happy. there's something in your life that is holding you down from living. And, he would just be like, whatever. And I mean, there was multiple times that I would tell him, like, you need help. And so in going through this, I think for me, I mean, in my heart, I wanted him to find him. Because once he finds him, if we work out, that's great. But ultimately, yeah, I was worried about our marriage, but I was mostly worried about him. And so I think maybe he kind of took that to heart, like, you know what, I'm doing this for her, but ultimately I'm doing this for me and I can't give up on myself. And I think I mean, I'm not like an expert in your program or anything, but I think the best word of advice I could give as like a wife to somebody is, yeah, you can do this for your spouse, but you got to do it for you ultimately and first, because once your spouse sees that you're doing something for you and you're going to change who you are, it's going to come together. Um, for me, at least, that's how it was. I was like, I don't do this for me, do this for you, because you are the one who needs fixing. And naturally, our relationship just got better because he did fix himself. He is happier now. He's more relaxed, like, and that shows. And so ultimately, do it for you.
Brett, I know you have a lot to say about this one because I think we even had like a long 2 hour call as a group 2 weeks ago, I think, or last week, I think, something where we talk about doing because you are, not because doing to have.
Yeah.
And why the people who try or to always do because they want to have, they ironically will never have. But the people who do because they ironically will get the having falling to them. And I think one of the beautiful things about your journey was you surrendered to that pretty early on. I think something clicked in you to be like, I need to do this for me. What was what was the contributors to that ego death for you? Because for me, right, for me, for example, mine was um to be honest, I recently had an ego death when I was considering kids, right? And then my wife was telling me, for example, oh, you're not the most present these days. And I always had the justification of like, well, yeah, I have a multi-million-dollar business with so many clients in a difficult niche. Of course, I can't be present all the time. But then what made me realize that was like, wait, if I have a daughter, she doesn't care why daddy's not present. I can't talk to her and go like, hey, 3-year-old, let me explain to you why daddy's not present. All they care about is daddy's not present. And I realized that like all these excuses that I was having for not being present was BS. And so that was when I started to work on that presence and my ability to just like snap out of work and kind of see the bigger picture. But I wasn't doing it for the relationship. I was doing it because I realized like I needed to do it no matter what, regardless of what happens in the relationship. What was the moments of that ego death for you to be like, doesn't care what happens anymore. I need to do this for me now or later. Now it would be preferred.
Yeah. Yeah. Like one thing that you say early on is, like one way or another, you have to like face these issues because even if you just, I mean, I don't know, like, I don't know if taking the easy way out is really the right way of saying it, but it's kind of like, a lot of people will be like, oh, like, I don't need her. Like, I'll find something else. And a lot of the things that you say early on is like, well, the same problems that ruin the relationship now are just going to carry on through the next relationship. So, like, you don't think that that's going to be a problem later on? And, like, just very early on, when you kind of go through the victim mindsets, like, it just really clicked for me. That's like, yeah, like, that's very true. Like, I was kind of fooling myself for a while. It's like, you know, when things were, you know, the worst that they were between us, like I would think of things like, oh, like if only she was more grateful. Like
Mm,
if only I had a partner that was like more grateful, or if I had somebody that would like want to be physical with me, it's like there's somebody out there for me that would want that, like they're thoughts that I had. Not that I was like pursuing those thoughts or anything, but they're thoughts that I had. And then when like you realize like, oh, okay, so yeah, like anybody would have a problem with the things that I was doing. So it's like it's not like I just hop over to another relationship and then like bam, like all your problems are fixed. Like
Yeah.
no, they still stay with you. And so the whole thing that you say is like one way or another, like you either learn it now or you learn it when you're 70. Like, wouldn't you rather just
Yeah.
learn it now and enjoy like the next 50 years of my life than to learn it when you're 60 or 70 and now you only get to enjoy that for like 10 or 20 years of your life. And I think just like accepting that within myself, like, yeah, I have a lot of stuff that's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And it'd be really great if I could figure that out now because then I have like a whole life. You know, I'm 33, so I'd have like the rest of my life to enjoy not being dragged down by all these negative mindsets that I have. And that was like a big motivation for me to just be like, yeah, like the relationship was like a secondary benefit. Like doing all this work now, it's like, wow, like imagine like a life where I'm not so worried about little stupid things. Like imagine a life where I can just be happy. Like that'd be really cool. So like that was kind
Yeah.
of a big motivation for me.
And so that's a big lesson for people. It's like, I think now I'm starting to understand too that the number one step I think I need to do for clients is allow them to have the ego death too of like realizing, no, you cannot, like, if you're still doing this to have something to get your partner back or for your partner, then whatever you do, it will not work here. It won't work. But once you learn how to do it because you see like no matter what happens to that relationship, you want to do this anyway. And it's funny because like it's the moment when clients stop asking me, when can I manufacture contact? When does reconciliation happen? How long does it take? Like once they stop asking all these outcome questions, it's always funny. Like in the next few months, their outcome comes. But if they keep asking it, those are the people who are always stuck, like asking it. And think you see this in the program too. Like some people who are asking the when questions, the what if questions, they're still asking those what if questions a year later. But it's not because like their situation was impossible. It was because they made it impossible. Because everything they do is just colored and poisoned with such bad intent that it's not believable. And if you keep doing that over the next year, you're just making it less and less believable over time, kind of thing. So that intention, guys, is so crucial, right? If you want to watch a video, I think I'm gonna put some link somewhere up here on that doing because you are not to have. That's a crucial thing because a lot of men don't understand that. And I think a lot of men don't understand that too because just like you said, Brett, a lot of men are not honest with themselves.
Yeah.
Why is that, you think? Kenzie too. Like, why is that? Like, why do you think, like, if you could look at a man's mind, it's like, why are so many men today, especially, not honest or to have a hard time being honest?
It's like it's so hard to
It's a
accept that there's
man
something
thing. And like,
wrong with
I feel
you.
like it's a more
Like,
man
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like got to be like a
issue.
social conditioning thing, or
Just
yeah.
the power that men have, you know, it's like
Men can't
it's
be weak. Men can't have emotions. Men can't cry. I think it all is kind of like in the same boat, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's just a conditioning thing when in reality it's like just let it go. Cry, do all that. You
But I
know.
think also men, they can get away with it.
yeah, I
Like
got
you
away
look
with
at
it for years.
Yeah, but like you look at this like red pill movement, that's like a big thing right now, or like the Andrew Tate characters, right? It's like, so what did he do, right? They they say it's funny, right? They brand themselves as red pill, but we think they're actually taking blue pill. Because like their idea of red pill is this: I have some flaws, right? But if you don't like my flaws, then fuck you. I'll find someone who likes me for me, kind of thing. And so it ends up creating this cycle where like they create a new relationship. They made their partner miserable. And if their partner's miserable, they're like, fuck you. They find a new one and a new one. And they can do this. You can just like go all your life just finding a new one, a new one, a new one. Every time something breaks, you just buy a new one. Every time something breaks, buy a new one. You could do that. But like I watch someone doing that and I'm like, are you really happy, man? Or are you just like chimpanzeeing your way from like one external source of happiness to another external source to another external source? I mean, if that's what you want, the happiness you want, then yeah, I'm not your guy. But if the happiness you want is like more everlasting, more constant, doesn't rely on external things, then we can do it. But I think a lot of men, because they can get away with just like chimpanzeeing from one external source of happiness to another, they settle. Like, the enemy of great is good, right? They look at that. It's like, yeah, I'm not perfectly happy, but it could work. I could do that till the day I die. Which I
Yeah,
think is a
that's what I
shameful
did.
thing. Yeah, it's a really sad thing to see, but I'm like, okay, it's what people are doing, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Did you feel that, Brett? Did you feel like you almost went into that cycle too?
Yeah, like I guess before I joined the program, it was a lot of like, well, like I had exactly that thought. It's like, well, like I'm not super happy, but like I can be happy sometimes. And it's like, and I think like it would kind of suck to just live my whole life living this way, but I think I'm okay with that. It's like I just lie to myself.
Yeah.
Lie to myself because then it
We are
like
creatures of habit.
yeah, it just didn't it wouldn't force me to really like put in the effort because like I mean, I'll be honest, like when I first kind of really everything clicked of like all the things that I was doing, I mean it sucked to feel that. Like there's a lot of nights where like I would cry a ton because I just like, oh
Mm,
my gosh, like I can't believe I was like this. Like and just thinking about like what I did to Kenzie, I'm just like, that was really hard to finally like accept. And it's not fun. It's not
yeah.
fun to have to face that, but it's like a necessary step to then now like I've accepted it. Like I can't ch go back and change it, but I can change the future.
Mm,
And so it's like for me, like it wasn't until I fully like accepted that for myself. It's like, all right, now we're past that. So let's do something about it now.
yeah. So, Kenzie, for you, what were the things that made the relationship heavy? Now that you could have a 2020 hindsight and you felt that heaviness, that low vibes, that negative vibes, that pressure, that walk on eggshells feeling, what was Brett doing, you think? Or what was the feeling, if you could describe it
Um,
and do a post-mortem?
yeah. I was actually just thinking about this, but personally, I think kind of like in the beginning, um, I mean, I didn't really start to notice things until after I had our daughter because he wasn't how heartbreaking it was for me to see that he didn't even like care about our newborn daughter, like killed me inside. And so even though he did, but he didn't anyways. I think the honestly the biggest sign for me when I realized, you know what, this is crap is I didn't, and if this is too personal, I'm sorry, but I didn't have a sex drive for years towards him. And of course, I thought it was a me problem. I went to doctors, I went to multiple hormone
Your
specialists.
hormone specialist, yeah.
I and everything was fine. And um I was like, what is wrong with me? Like I should want to have sex. Like this is so dumb. And then the more I like grew and learned and the actual therapist we went to was she specialized in sex therapy because that's what we were going for. Because we're like, why don't I want to have sex? And then the more and more it went into it, it was like, I don't feel safe emotionally. And so that was like a really big growing thing is for women, and I didn't even know this as a woman, but for women, they're not built like men, like they can't just I don't know what it's like to be a man, but it's so sex is so much deeper than just sex. Like if you don't feel emotionally safe, I mean, it would get to the point where like we'd be like kissing and I would have a full-blown panic attack. It felt scary. It felt terrifying.
Mm,
There's times I would cry, like, because I did not feel safe with this person. And so I think for me, like that was the biggest sign was like I didn't have a sex drive. And other things he would do, like we mentioned the money thing. Like I'd have to, if I own a floral business that does well, and I mean during the winter and stuff, it's slow. And so maybe like, I mean, we have like our different things. Like I pay for things, he pays for things. And if I need like extra help, I'd have to like, he made it clear, like, I need you to ask me before you use my card. And that's not, there's no safety in that. When
Yeah.
you're married,
Just
you're in
trust
it
me.
together.
Like, you don't trust me with this? Like, are you
Yeah.
kidding?
And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm buying groceries for our daughter. Like, I'm not like out buying, random crap, but it was things like that. Just I didn't feel safe. And I never knew when he was gonna blow up. Like there was one time specifically that's like really traumatizing for me, but I our daughter, she's really shy and she has a hard time like putting herself out there. And she was out there playing with the neighbor kids, like out in the driveway. And it
Mm.
was like such a like a yes moment, like, yes, she's playing with kids. And Brett came home furious that he couldn't park in the driveway.
Yeah.
And
Now you laugh
um
about it, but
like
Yeah,
full
it's so
on,
stupid.
he was so upset that he couldn't just pull into the driveway. And I lost it. I was like, our daughter's playing. Like, how are you thinking of yourself? This is so stupid. Like, just because you can't park in the driveway. It was just like the littlest things like that. I just never knew when he was gonna get upset. And so all
Mm.
those just little things over time leads to no sex drive, leads to not feeling safety. If your wife isn't having sex with you, it's deep down. It's deeper than just attraction. It's deeper than just sex. There's safety issues happening here. And I think that once I realized and came to terms that like my sex drive wasn't because I didn't want to have sex, it was because I didn't feel safe. It was like, there's issues here. And
Yeah.
I'm not crazy for thinking that
Yeah.
everything he blows up about is my fault, or I would internalize a lot of that. Like, oh, you know what? Like I should have moved their chalk to the other side of the driveway so you could pull in. That's my bad. And I think coming to terms with, you know what, this is not my fault. None of this is my fault. This is something he's got to fix. It was a big deal.
Yeah. And so on that safety point, that's why we teach like the 5 pillars, right? Is like the sex stuff is like the end. Because you're right, like sex issues are never about sex issues. It's about like safety issues. Because if you look at even your hormones, how they work, oxytocin, estrogen, right? All these hormones that allow you to be open and allow you to be horny and sexual and want it, those are all those require safety, right? Like there's a lot of studies that say like a lot of women, for example, who when they feel unsafe in their pregnancy, they can't even produce enough oxytocin to have a proper pregnancy or to have a proper birth, right? This is just human body, but also philosophically too. You look at the woman's role being more receptive. That's a much scarier role than the man who's more thrusting, right? So no matter how you look at it, it's always a safety issue. You fix that, you realize that you fix the desire, but also you can allow the intimate times to be more honest, but you can talk about the stuff more and you can understand each other more and you can make it more enjoyable for both people too. But the thing about Brett, for you, right? If you could do really the issue with your blow ups was really a lack of bulletproof vest, right? But I think specifically here, it's the danger with men sometimes is that they take whatever they feel and they use what they feel to justify that they can feel that way, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, like you come home and you think about something that makes you angry. And when you're angry, you use that anger to tell yourself why you're right to feel angry or why you're right to think this. So for in our program, it's the other way around, right? It's like if you feel something, that doesn't mean what you feel is true. Look at the interpretations that led to that and change this, right? But a lot of men they use their emotions to confirm the interpretations. Do you relate with that?
Um, yeah, it's like just, like I never really talk to like a lot of people about the struggles we had because I think deep down, like I knew that I would just be making myself look bad if I really like shared it all.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember I'd be like thinking in my head, it's like, well, yeah, like I have every right to be pissed off about this because this is happening and this is happening, and like anybody else would feel this way too. Like I know they would. So like I'd be like, oh, it's just like I'm so frustrated right now. I'm so upset at this. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm that way because X happened, Y happened. Like, I bet you like anybody else would be thinking this too, and just like trying to justify myself internally and all that.
Yeah. And it's like sometimes, even in the program, people come to us and we give someone tough love or like, and people say, for example, like, your tough love made me feel like shit, right? And I'm like, not really, right? I can't make you feel like shit. It's how you interpret me. It's how you interpret that tough love. Like, because some people get the tough love and they love it. Or they're like, oh my God, this is the wake up call I need. Some people hate it. It depends on how you see it. But if you use, but then like if you take your whatever emotions you feel and you use it as an attack, then you will never become someone who's like emotionally intelligent, for lack of a better word. You just always become a slave to your emotions. Whatever I feel, that's the reality now. Well, what we're doing is like what you feel is not the reality. Change the way you see it, and you will change your emotions, how you feel about something, kind of thing. And that's such a powerful skill to have where you no longer become a slave of your emotions. You are now a master of it. You control it. You don't let it control you, kind of thing. Um, and that's I think what Brett was saying when he says like, wouldn't it be nice to have a life where you can control your emotions? Right? A lot of people don't understand, I think, the true value of that. I think so many people just live life just feeling things and as if like they have no control over what they feel. But I'm like, no, you totally have control over every single thing you feel. You can choose to feel good or bad. It depends on how you see it. If you change the way you see things, it changes everything. And so, did you have this feeling too, Brett, where you felt like you were that slave to your emotions a bit? Like you would just have these feelings right like come in, and once they come in, that's it. You're just swept for a while and you can't control it. You can't like wake up in the moment at least.
Yeah, there's like certain like tasks or activities that I would do that like I knew if I did them, I was just gonna probably get mad. And so kind of is like, well, like I can't do that because if I do that, I'm just gonna get mad, and then that's gonna make Kenzie mad, and then that's gonna ruin our whole day. It's like so probably best if I just avoid it altogether. And so yeah, it's like you are a slave to your emotions because your emotions are literally my emotions were literally like choosing for me. I
Yeah.
wasn't like able to choose what I wanted to do. It's like, well, I know I can do this because I'll be happy, which is like be on my phone, watch TV, play video games. Like, like I can be happy doing that. Like I'm not gonna like that's a place where I can just be calm. It's like, but if I don't know, put something together like furniture or hardware or like, just put like a
Stay
shelf
away from
together.
IKEA, man. Stay away
It's
from
like It's
IKEA.
like I know I have to do this, but like I
It can be
also know I'm
frustrating.
gonna be pissed the whole time, and then
Yeah.
Kenzie's gonna be mad, and like I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So for people to, you just summarize this in your heads, right? It's like this. Events do not cause emotions, right? It's events go through, you interpret that event, and whatever you interpret causes your emotions. So whatever you feel cannot be because of someone said this made me feel this way. It doesn't work that way. There is a, it can be very subconscious, but there's like a very, very subconscious process in the middle where you're making up a lot of stories, narratives in your head that makes you feel a certain way. So when you feel something, don't try to use that feeling to control the way you interpret the next thing, right? When you feel something, know that there was a previous interpretation that you need to change. to fix that emotion, right? So that's what it means to become a master of the emotions. And we go into this deep into the internal shift series. If you're not in the program, you go watch that. The other thing that I've been kind of like tickling in my head, and it's going to be like a video this week, is about the danger of assumptions and judgment. In the program, we call it like FAE bias, right? Judgment in general. Um, I want to start this with my story first, right? So like Kenzie, I don't think you know the story because it's only like shared with people in the program so far. But like there was a time in May last year when my partner and I we went with my parents to Canada and we have a Range Rover. And so my wife packed all our stuff, right? Me and my her stuff into like one big suitcase weighing 85 pounds. And so we had to pay like the $250 fee, whatever it is, for overweight fee. And I remember throughout the whole flight, I was like kind of upset. I'm like, man, is Sam just like, does she not care about money anymore? Like, she thinks she can just do this. She thinks she can just like, without saying anything. And I was like brewing on the plane ride to Canada for like many hours. And so like when we landed, we went to the hotel. We have our alone time. I asked her like, how come you didn't put it into two bags? Like, it could have been into two 40-pound bags. Why? And she goes, oh, the reason why is because like the Range Rover, I don't know how many bags I can fit, and I don't know how many bags your parents have. So I wanted to make sure like your parents have space. So I would rather us pay the $250 fee to make sure your parents have space than risk, alien making your parents feel like they can't bring their stuff. And I just felt so stupid in that moment. I was like, I've been brooding and annoyed about this for like hours, and I realized she has a perfectly great reason for it. And I feel like a lot of people who are upset, they do that, right? They look at an action, they assume like a bad intention, they interpret it wrong, and they fucking run with it. And then make them feel upset. You never express it, you never ask it. And so this is when Brett, like you do something that makes Brett upset, and then you're thinking like, what the fuck did I do? And then Brett is also like, I can't believe she did this. And you guys are all both upset over nothing, technically, right? And the same thing sometimes like is the opposite too. And I think this is really the killer of a lot of relationship is like that, making assumptions and running with it, right?
Mhm. Lack of communication.
And a lack of communication to even ask. Well, the lack of communication also because of the lack of safety too. Because if I could also imagine how if I said that in a very angry way to my partner, she wouldn't have maybe like explained the whole conversation would just go awry kind of thing, right? Um, so I'm sure, Brett, for you, like a lot of the judgments that you made about Kenzie and the reason she did something led to the spiral in your mind of like you noticing a small little chalk on the driveway led to this fucking spiral internally. There was a lot of assumptions being made there. But I bet she did this because of this. I can't believe she's treating me like this. I can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. Like, if you could
Yeah, it was
slow
just
down
always like
time.
kind of just like, oh, like I can't believe that she would leave that out for me to clean up. There's a lot of that. There was a lot of that I lived with. It's like, um, like make dinner and like it's a mess or something. It's like, hey, like I'm thankful that you made dinner, but like at the same time, like why would you just like make it so now I have to clean all this up and like I'm spending time out of my day or like the laundry or something. It's like I how come like I always have to fold the laundry? Like how come I always have to do this stuff? And like,
Our
just
lives were very separate. We were married, but we didn't, it wasn't a
A
partnership.
team. Yeah, yeah, it
Yep.
wasn't a team. It was like you do your thing, I do my thing. We don't speak to each other. Just do your job, I'll do my job, we'll be fine, kind of thing.
Well, looking that way, it is frustrating because it's like, who is going to do the dishes? I don't want to do it, but you don't want to do it, and it's just like, you can't live a happy marriage if you're not in a team. You
And
can't.
you can't talk about it too. So you
Right.
just have this like dishes that's like not done, and then you're just waiting. It's like, how come you're not doing it? How come you're not doing it? And then it's like, well, I did it, like, and it creates this like a lot of back and forth and a lot of bitterness, to be honest, a lot of baggage, because then you make up all these stories while you watch the dishes not being done. You're like, oh,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
a
yeah,
it's a brutal
I'd be
cycle.
like every Sunday I would clean the whole house. And like when Kenzie wouldn't participate in cleaning, I would always be like, "Oh my gosh, like how how selfish is she that like I'm spending like 4 hours cleaning, I'm vacuuming, I'm sweeping, I'm mopping, I'm doing all this stuff, and like she's just sitting there like, and she like I can't believe that she isn't even considerate enough to like help me, and like I'd be so mad all the time about that.
And then
It's
when he
like,
would ask me, I'd be like, no, because you're treating me like an asshole.
yeah,
You're
it's
like,
like
you're being mean about it. Like, no, I don't want to help you now.
yeah.
When in reality, it's like, I worked till 1 a.m. last night. Like, give me a second, and it was always just,
Yeah, and I was like, can you please just like vacuum down here? And I do it in that kind of tone. It's like, can you just like vacuum? Like, please just like help me. You know? And they'd be like, well,
I'm
no,
gonna
I don't
punch you in
want
the
to. Yeah. It's like maybe I was going to, but no, I'm not.
Yeah. So like the takeaway from people that I want to have here is just be careful of the assumptions that you make, because I see so many people who are like angry about relationships in general. You see like people in the comment section going like, "Oh my God, women are bitches. Women suck, right? Women are not worth it. Marriage is the worst thing ever." And I was thinking about this, right? Like if I, let's say, made that assumption about my partner in that one instance, and we never talked about it, there is some alternate universe somewhere where I actually thought my partner was this gold digging bitch, and maybe we broke up because of it. There is this reality where if that was left unaddressed and I just ran with those assumptions, I would hate my partner for no reason over like a misunderstanding. And I feel like a lot of times when people are so angry, it's like, dude, I bet you 99% of what you're angry about is not even real. It's all like made up shit that you stacked on top of each other because you niggas never just communicated. There's no safety to communicate,
Mhm.
right? And that's the big shame, I think. So just be careful of that.
Yeah, there's actually one thing that just a really quick thing that is just I mean, it's not funny because it was like this definitely not funny. But
It's
like
probably funny
it's
now,
kind of just
but
funny to think about because of how stupid it was. Like I remember we came back from a New Year's party with our friends and Kenzie's obviously upset that she's not feeling supported with Ivory. And I'm feeling like, "Oh, I do help you with our daughter. Like I do help support you." Um, and when you say like, things can be left unaddressed and they can just spiral out of control, well, honestly, like when people maybe want to address it, I don't even know if they know how to address it. Because Kenzie came to me, and I'm sure it was like really hard. She's like, "Hey, I just looked at my friend's husband. Like it was just I watched him just willingly like take his daughter to bed, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like I wish so bad that like Brett could just do that." And she's like, I just really like need that help from you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I do help. I put our daughter to bed last night.
Yeah.
It's like, so you want help putting her to bed, but I do that. And she just like cried. She just
Like,
cried and she's
that's
like, I
not what
just
I
can't.
meant.
She's like,
That's
I
not what I
can't.
yeah.
meant,
Yeah, she's like, I
Brad.
can't do this right now. Like, I can't. This is so exhausting. I'm like, what do you want from me? Like, yeah, she's like, hey, we need to address that. But like, I didn't have any skill to actually address it.
And
And now she's even more
it
mad.
wasn't my intention to hurt his feelings. It
No.
was, I need to talk about this. Like I'm with my friends all the time and their husbands, and I see that the team that they are, and I don't know why we can't be that way. And just like watching my friend's husband just be like, okay, I'm gonna go put so and so to bed, and my friend be like, yes, thank you. Like I was just like, what? Like, how does that just happen? Like I don't know. It was just I would see things like that all the time and get frustrated that we couldn't do that too. And so I
Yeah.
think part of me was like, you know what, let's like talk about this. And then it wasn't talking,
Yeah.
but
And I think that's like the victim mindset talking, right, Brett? At that point, it's like, because at that point, you can either say, okay, let me get you to understand me, or it's let me understand you at that point.
Yeah.
And I think so many men have this issue of they get lost in the trees. And the reason I say this is emotional issues are always very hard to articulate. So whenever my partner brings up something, right, we have this concept in the program, Kenzie, called the thing behind a thing, right? Always find a thing behind a thing.
Yeah, we've talked about this
Yeah.
before,
And so
yeah.
like, my partner, for example, she brought up so just to tell you a bit about life story, right? It's like over the last 3 years, Kenzie, we spent a shit ton of money, right? I'm not happy about that. But like we bought this house, or we built this house. We had a wedding that's like multiple hundred thousands. Um, got a few cars, right? We took a vacation to UK for 3 months that cost us like 60,000, right? It's a lot. And so like after the UK trip, I got her a watch at 30,000, right? After the UK trip, okay? After we spent all this money, she said, I'm upset that we don't have I don't have a bracelet. I've been like wanting this bracelet. I've been asking for it. I've been hinting at it. I see my friends having bracelets. I don't have a bracelet. And a lot of men would have gotten lost in that conversation and go like, "Oh, you're such a bitch. So materialistic. What is wrong with you? Like, we have everything. What is wrong with you?" And they would have gotten lost in that tree. But then, like, what she was really trying to express to me was during the UK trip, right? Because of the time zone difference, I was working a lot of late nights, and so a lot of dinners, a lot of like late nights where we should have spent time together. I couldn't do that, and it was supposed to be our also like honeymoon in a way too. So she felt very unspecial. She felt very unprioritized. And emotionally, she didn't know how to articulate that. And the way she articulated that was about the bracelet, right? That bracelet could have been a signal. But then eventually, after like a long conversation, she's like, Jeff, fuck the bracelet. I don't want the bracelet anymore. I just want to feel special, right? It's like, but so many men would have lost the plot completely and made the wrong assumption and gone the conversation to wrong direction. But it's like, no, that's not what she was trying to tell you. And I think that was what's happening in your case too. Is like Kenzie was trying to tell you, like, I I see this and I want that. And then if you get lost in the logistics of it to be like, but I do that, you totally miss the
Yeah.
fucking point. What she's looking for is like the feeling behind it, the vibes, the presence behind it. Even maybe even like, you know, maybe you can do it, but maybe you can do it more willingly. Maybe you can do it more lovingly. Maybe you can do it more proactively. There's something deeper than just you taking the kids to bed. Am I wrong or right, Kenzie?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And I think
Because,
though,
like, let's say you did go buy your wife the bracelet. Would that make her happy? She'd be like,
exactly,
oh, no,
right?
you just bought it because I said that, you know?
And
There's
then
some,
you can
it's
imagine
not about the
couples,
bracelet, it's something deeper.
then you can imagine couples spiraling, right? I buy her the bracelet. She's still not happy. Then I'm going, oh, what a fucking bitch. I knew it. One more.
Exactly it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so like relationships are so funny because like there's so many blind spot mistakes we can make. And it makes us feel like something, an assumption we're making about the person or the relationship is so true until like Brett, like you said, like someone shows us the other alternative and go like, wait, it doesn't have to be like that. What? Right. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um,
One thing
oh, go ahead.
just this is very off topic, but our appointment at the top of the hour canceled, so I just wanted
Okay.
you to be aware.
Well, I usually don't like to go over 2 hours because like it's tiring, but okay.
Yeah, yeah. But I'll just let you know, like
Okay.
that's not happening.
Cool. So, Kenzie, so like there was this moment that Brett was writing up about you went to the cruise, I think, eventually, right? Together, and then you had to be medically evacuated.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me more. And
It's funny now.
yeah.
But
It was so dumb.
so that's crazy. That was like a year ago. We got on this cruise ship, and I'd never been on a cruise. And you know, everybody's like, "Oh, seasickness." And so I got some of those like seasickness patches, you know, that you put on the back of your neck. And so people are like, "Oh yeah, put it on like the night before you get on the boat, and then you know it should be like kicked in by then." So I was doing that, and we we literally were on the boat for how it was
Maybe
like
a half hour.
not even that, like 10 minutes. We had gotten on the boat, we walked up the stairs, we were trying to find something to eat. And when we got to the top of the stairs, I felt like this pop in my eye, and I like couldn't see out of it. It was like blurry, and I was like, that was weird. Like, and then I'm like, I don't know why I'm laughing about this, but and I look at Brett and I'm like, will you look at my eye? Like I can't see. And he was like, holy shit, like your pupil is huge. And so like this pupil was normal, but this one was like And in my head, like,
It wouldn't react to light either.
yeah.
Oh
And
my
in
God.
my head,
Okay.
I'm like, I'm having an aneurysm. That's like the first sign of brain trauma. I don't remember how I knew that, but I was like, I'm gonna die on this ship and it's about to leave in 30 minutes. So I'm like crying. I'm like, I'm gonna die. Like, we're like trying to, there's gotta be like a medic somewhere. So we find the medic and they're like, it's not reacting to light. And they're like, this is bad. Like, you got to get off. And they're like, it's gonna leave. Um, I, and that
We had
morning,
no choice. That's the thing. We had
yeah.
no choice. They were
Yeah.
forcing.
Yeah.
And, the night before, I had been feeling like really dizzy too. And so I was like freaking out. I'm like, there's something wrong with me. I'm gonna die. And I was literally like texting my mom, like, I love Ivory. Like, I was like so scared. And so
Making a
an
video,
ambulance,
Will. If you see this video.
yeah, for real. And I didn't have good service, and it was just like, it was a freaking nightmare. And so an ambulance comes, takes me to the hospital, and we get there, and they're like, do CAT scans, like everything's fine. And then this nurse like sees the patch on my neck. And she's like, take it off, take it off. She like took it off and she was like rubbing alcohol like all over my neck. And I guess the seasickness patch can mess with the nerves in the back of your eye and it can cause them to dilate. And so like emergency out of nothing, it was just because of the patch. My eye was dilated for like 3 days still. Like I couldn't like see out of it. I looked like a zombie, but I wasn't having a brain aneurysm. So anyone going on a cruise and you're wearing one of those seasickness patches and your eye dilates, you're fine. It's you're not having an aneurysm. It's just because of the patch. But um that was
How
that was
did,
a really growing moment for us. I think is probably where you're getting at. I don't know if you
yeah.
want to hear that
But I
whole
think,
story.
that moment right there, right, was what I call like a make or break moment because like at that moment you could look back and then and go, was Brett kind of a ally in this, or was Brett more like an enemy? Or did he make things harder? Right. And I know Brett, you look at that story and you're kind of proud of yourself there. You're like, this is good. Like, I think I did well here. Like, tell me from your perspective, like when this
Yeah,
was happening, what were you doing? Yeah.
and
Well,
I
it was so frustrating because sorry,
no, no, you're
we
okay.
just got kicked off the ship. We didn't know if we would be able to rejoin them. Like our whole vacation was just ruined because of my eye.
Your
To
patch,
me,
that
I was like
patch.
feeling so guilty. And I do like naturally, I do have like weird medical things that happen all the time. And so I'm like, oh, this is just another thing. It ruined our trip. Like he had every reason to be upset. And anyways, go on from like
Yeah,
you were
and I
saying.
think I think one thing that we've talked about recently with each other too is like there can be certain stories that happen um for both of us to be involved in it. Um Well, yeah, like maybe there's some stories where I look at it, it's like, hey, like I'm really happy that I was able to show up in a proper way. But like also from Kenzie's point of view, it's like I don't, some things it's like I don't really see this as like a celebration, things. It's like this is like a really tragic, traumatizing event that happened to me. And so there's like two different kind of sides to see on that, like. I'm sure that it wasn't like like hey, like sweet, like great
Yeah.
moment here, because it was really, really scary. Um, but from your point, like there's a million different ways that I could have responded and a million different ways to drive that guilt, drive that her feeling like she just ruined this whole vacation. Like that could have spiraled like so much worse. And yeah, like it could have been a moment where it's like in one of my biggest times of need, like he was making it worse like that, like kind of showing the true, his true colors right there, in a moment where you can't fake it, like what does they really do? And the reason why I kind of shared this story, is because I remember like when we were waiting for the taxi to pick us up, because we eventually were able to reunite with our family, on another port. Um, don't ask me how, but somehow it worked.
Well, that was like another thing that was really cool is like a lot of times in stressful situations, he doesn't allow me to help. He kind of just takes over. And we were like freaking out, like trying to figure out how we could meet them in the Bahamas, like the next day, trying to find every flight. There was no flights to the Bahamas. We'd have to meet up with them like 2 days later. And in those moments of like trying to search for flights, he was allowing me to help, which was really nice. He wasn't just like pushing me aside and being like, I got this. Like I felt validated. And I'm the one who actually was
Yeah.
able to find our flight through
Yeah.
this mini airplane that seated 5 people. We were able to fly into the Grand Turk. And, it was a really good moment of teamwork that we had never had before.
Yeah.
Because, and I think it was like a trust moment for him. Like, you know what? I can trust her too in this. She's, not that he thinks I'm dumb, but like for me, it was like, he doesn't think I'm dumb. Like, I can do this too. And just in that moment alone of being in like a really like tight spot of, oh, we gotta get to the Bahamas tomorrow morning. We were like up all night trying to find things to, it's okay. We worked it out as a team. Like it was a really cool moment, honestly,
Yeah.
to
Yeah, and
come through
just
that.
like one thing that you told me while waiting for the taxi is you're just like, hey, like I just want to let you know that through all of this, like I felt very safe with you. And I was like, wow, I don't think she's ever said that about me before. And so, yes, while it was like maybe not like a great moment from like Kenzie's point of view because of all these things that happened, like I am grateful that because of the things I learned up to that point, which I was still like, not even halfway through the program at the point, but there was enough like things that I learned, enough skills that I had developed where it's like, if I just remember this thing is like this is stressful, like this is crazy, like, but I like consciously just had to think for a minute. It's like, so let's say that I get worked up right now. Like, let's say that I lose my, bulletproof vest. Um, Imagine like how Kenzie would feel through all this. Like,
Yeah.
geez, like if I really just think about what she's feeling, like the only thing I want to do right now is just make her feel like that she's gonna be okay. Like that was the number one thing going through my mind. It's like I don't really have the skills of knowing how to create, emotional safety at the time, but like I think I know like enough to know like if I just really think
Put
about
myself
being
in.
in her
Yeah.
shoes right now,
Mm.
um, anything that I do right now, it's like the intent is make her feel okay, make her feel like everything's gonna be okay.
And
And
imagine
I
if you
don't even
didn't.
know, like, I
Yeah.
can't even tell you like what I really did, but it's like the intention behind every action.
And that's the crucial part, right? That's the
Right.
crucial part is like, so the first thing is like, imagine if you didn't thrive in that moment. Kenzie, you would be in this position where like you would see Brett doing all these nice things after that cruise, but then in the back of your head, you'd be like, but when shit really hits the fan, he's gonna lose his shit too. So all this like being nice and everything on daily life, great and all. But when shit really hits the fan, he's not gonna have my back. And that's
Yeah.
a very scary thought for you, which prevents you from feeling fully safe.
hmm Well, and
But
in that
also,
moment,
go ahead.
like I'm not one to get angry. I'm like a pretty calm person, all in all. And once they gave us like, you're fine, it was just the patch. I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was like, they kicked us off the boat just because of this stupid patch. Of course, I'm the one to ruin our vacation because of some weird health things, because this happens all the time. Like, I was like shaking in the hospital bed. I was like, I wanted to punch something. Like, and that's very odd for me. And so for him to stay calm through all that and just allow me to feel what I was feeling, I remember sitting there and being like, aren't you gonna get mad too? Like, why aren't you getting mad too? Like, you're the one who gets mad. Why aren't you getting mad? And the fact that he like stayed calm, he was like, it's gonna be okay. Like, and
Yeah.
that really ultimately led to us being able to work as a team,
Yeah.
because and that was really nice, honestly. Like, I was the one
Kenzie.
throwing the tantrum for once, and
Yeah.
he was able to stay calm through all that. Like, it was wonderful.
There's a funny story too, because like my wife gets sick every single vacation we take. Like without fail, she
Oh.
gets sick. I think she catches something on the plane, even
Mhm.
when she wears a mask, whatever. So initially, I was feeling kind of annoyed because I'm like, man, we can't ever have a real vacation. This is like 6 vacations in a row now. But then now it's gone to the point where it's like 20 vacations, and now we actually have fun with it, and we the way we remember vacations is by describing her sickness. Time when you got sick, this that vacation, right? So we have kind of like a lot of fun with it. But that's the kind of like turning negative into positive that we teach our clients. We try to get our clients to do is like, hey, every negative moment is gonna be a core memory, right? You can either make that core memory into a negative experience. Sure, if you like in a negative experience, you can make it like you can solve your problem so like nothing bad happens. But if you solve your problem with a negative process, that's in the core memory, right? Or you solve it with a positive process. And sometimes you do a positive process. It may not even come to like the best resolution, but the very fact that you had fun solving the problems together, that becomes the core memory. So just
Mhm.
remember, like that's the memories we want to create, not the outcome, the process. But the great thing that you said, Brett, was like, I didn't even know what I did, which is awesome because then it means like it were just flowing out of you. It was not like, and that's I think what makes changes believable is that it's what you do during moments that are unexpected. There are curveballs that require you to think on the fly, right? Like if Kenzie sees a moment and she go like, and she can go like, okay, let me zen myself for a bit. Let me take some time out. Let me plan what I'm about to say to you versus a change is like spontaneous, and then you look back and you go, Brett could not have faked that. I think that's just who he is. Like that's just who he is now under crisis. Even when he's not thinking, not trying, he's just like that. That I think has a lot of trust points in your head, Kenzie, because you're like, this is who he is now by default, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it reminds me of like there was this client, right? He's like, his partner called him after like a long month of no contact, and then called him and said like, "Let me tell you, I've been really pissed off at you all this whole time, and let me tell you whatever." And after that call, he crumbled, right? He crumbled and he stopped doing the program. It's like, fuck this. But then I said to him like, bro, that was your moment. That was your moment. Like, that was your moment. You've been asking for an opportunity this whole time. That was your opportunity. And you fucking crumbled. What are you doing? It's like that fish story, right? The fish swims around and he goes like, I'm looking for this place called the ocean. And the other fish is like, motherfucker, you're in the ocean. No, this is water. I want to look at the ocean. No, you're in the ocean. And I think a lot of people, they say they want these opportunities to show their changes. The opportunities don't come from the ones you create. It comes unexpectedly. It comes from these curveballs because those are the moments when people know, can you fake it or can you not? And if you take those curveballs and you crumble because you haven't made it into you, a lifestyle, you're still trying to like put on your mask every day and you just happen to forget to put on your mask that moment, you're fucked. Right. So you gotta make it a do to because you are thing. You gotta make it genuine. And Brett, I think that's what you would say too.
Yeah, there's been a few moments that have happened between us over the last year or so where, yeah, like you never know like when something is gonna happen. Just the whole instance of the guy that was involved with Kenzie's life, like emotionally, like, and she was able to finally like tell me about that. Like it's an unexpected moment. Like those are, yeah, it's like to really see who the person really is. Um,
That's a story for
and
another time if you're into another video,
Yeah.
'cause that really was a cool moment too. But anyways.
Yeah. So the one
yeah,
last thing I want to touch on after this concept of like you gotta make it you can't be doing this as a tactic, right? If you're doing this to be like, let me put on my mask, take it off, put on my mask, take it off, it's going to be the moment when you take off your mask that's going to burn you. Is that mask has to be part of your skin now, right? You gotta do it, and if it feels tough to do it, if it feels like a chore to do it, then you haven't really untethered from that yet. You need to really make sure you love it intrinsically. This is a lifestyle you can do. But Kenzie, you said, or Brett says this. Can you verify? You want a vow renewal. Tell me
Yeah,
your
we
ideas
talked about
behind that. Tell me what, I guess, spurred that thought, spurred that desire
it.
for you, and what does that symbolize for you? And for you too, Brett.
Yeah, again, like back to the Mormon thing. We like for those of you who don't like know, like Mormons get married in the temple and it's very symbolic thing. And I've deconstructed Mormonism. I'm no longer a part, which is a really big deal. And so now that our like memory of being married in the temple, which is something I don't believe in anymore, is just kind of like Well, let's redo that because
There's
that,
only select people can like attend as well. It's like
yeah.
a very
It's like
intimate
half of
setting.
his family was in there, half my family was
30
there.
people were, 30 people can go in with you. Like it's
Yeah.
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 And so there's that aspect of it where I'm like, I don't believe in that anymore. Like, let's do it again. But there's also this aspect of looking back, like I not only has Brett done a lot of self-growth, I also have too, which is
Mhm.
in my self-growth, I learned a lot of self-respect for myself and realized, you know what, I deserve better than this. Let's kick you out of the house. And so I think not only have we like grown up together, but we both grew up like individually that we look back and we're like, who are those people? Who are those little kids getting married in a Mormon temple? Like that's not even like it almost feels like a dream. That wasn't real. Like we've changed and grown so much that we've like separately, but now like that it's starting to come together. Like
Mm.
both of us growing individually is now starting to like come together as a team. It's like let's start over.
Yeah.
Let's get married again and symbolize like our this is us now. Back
Yeah.
then wasn't our true selves. This is our, you know, I think it'd be symbolic in a lot of ways, not just, our marriage. Well, I mean, it is symbolic for that, but just look at how much we've grown. Let's start now, fresh start. Let's go on from that.
Yeah. I love that because, and I bring this up because, we talk about this whole notion of it takes two to tango, right? And we always say in our program, like, that's kind of bullshit. Because I think there was a point, right, for sure, when Kenzie, you didn't want the relationship anymore. When Brett, you were doing a lot of things to probably betray the relationship in many ways that you weren't even aware of, right? And you both were doing a lot of things that I think were a bit toxic to each other, that kind of hurt each other's feelings as well. And you go from there to the point where both of you were kind of like contributing negatively to the relationship to now where both of you are wanting to renew your vows again, right? Um, and I see so many people who are in the trough of their relationship. And when you're in the trough of the relationship, you often see both people doing negative things and doing toxic things. And the easy narrative that you can play on that is you can say, oh, it's just not meant to be. You can say, oh, my partner showed her true colors now, or their true colors. You can say, if they won't take me at my best, then they don't deserve me at my worst. So if you don't treat me well at my worst, then fuck you, kind of thing. There's so many ways you can like attack your partner's character and use it as an excuse to just go, you know what, this relationship wasn't meant to be. What would you say, having gone out of that cycle, been in that cycle yourself and now out of that cycle? What would you say to people like that who think they cannot do it? Like, if my partner doesn't want to fix the relationship, then how can I? Right? If my partner doesn't want to feel hope, then how can I? If my partner is doing this, then how can I uh, fix it? What would you say to those people?
Is is um I wasn't sure who the
Yeah,
questions
no, it's
to.
Oh,
okay,
no
sorry.
worries. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, yeah. I realize I'm looking at you, but then like since it's the same camera, so I'm like, how would you know? But okay. Brett.
Um, yeah, so who would I say to the people that, if their partner's not doing something, then that basically validates that they don't have to do anything either? That's kind of what you're asking.
Basically believes in two to tango and
Yeah.
uses that as an out.
Oh no, again, it's like it's another victim mindset where you're basically like giving up control to an external source that you have absolutely zero control over. Like if you're just waiting for like your partner to act first, like you have no control over when that's going to happen. So are you just, yeah, it's like it might not ever happen. Maybe she doesn't want to get back together with you, so she's just like she's done. It's like if you're just basing your motivation off of something that you have absolutely zero control over, then like when's it ever going to happen?
Mm.
But if you actually like look at like what I can control right now, like I can control the toxic things that I'm doing. Like if I can work on that, like, like I don't know, it's like if you're for me, it's like I had an experience like growing up with somebody like so I was it was actually when I was like a missionary for like the church. And I was put together with this guy for like 6 weeks.
Mm.
And I can like understand a lot of what Kenzie felt in our relationship, not to the full extent because I think my experience is just like a sliver of like because that was like 6 weeks. This was like years. But like I understand that feeling of like just yeah, like there's zero safety. There's like this guy is just being a complete asshole. Like I felt like even just like I couldn't stand another minute with this guy for 6 weeks I was with him. Like I actually went and like asked to be split up because it was so bad. Um, and I'm sure like the other guy too was like thinking, oh, this guy sucks. Like I can't believe I'm paired with him. Like what an idiot. Like he doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, for my perspective, it's like, oh, like I wanted to be his friend. Like I wanted to be close with this guy, like, because he had a reputation, like, oh, he's like a cool guy. And like, I was super excited to be with him, but like, it was so bad. And like, I didn't even really know what to do. Like, I was just so paralyzed in fear. And I just remember it's like, yeah, like, if this guy had just changed a few things, like, I know that like I would have been ready to like forgive him. Like, I would have been ready to accept
Yeah.
that. And like, I would have really, really liked to, yeah, like, become good friends with him and work together with him. Now, that's not exactly the same as like what a lot of people experience in a marriage that's been going to the tank for years and stuff. But I think just like for me to be on like that end of things and then be on the other end, so I've kind of like had similar experiences on both sides of this. It's like, yeah, like if you change the stuff that like nobody can really stand to be around, well, then all of a sudden, like they can stand to be around that.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, so he used to get upset at me. He used to be on edge like all the time. It's like, God, like I can't feel like, from Kenzie's perspective, like I can't feel like I can really like live my life because I'm afraid of what he's gonna do.
Yeah.
And so now I'm gonna kind of be a jerk back to him.
It's like my parents is a great
But
example because they've been married, but they're not happy. And it's always like this, right? I asked my mom, and she would always say, like, well, if your dad stopped losing his temper so much, then maybe I will
yeah,
listen to him. And then my dad would say, like, well, maybe if she listens to me, I wouldn't lose my temper so much.
right.
And it's just like, they just go back and forth all the time. And it's like, dude, okay, dad, if you just fix your temper issue, and mom, you just fix your listening issue, you'll fix this issue. But if you just keep saying, like, well, no, you need to fix your issues first, then it's just a stalemate kind of thing. Nothing happens, right? And it's kind of like what happens to a lot of couples. It's like, well, my partner doesn't want to work on the relationship, so why should I? I'm like, well, the fact that you're waiting for your partner to work on the relationship is why she's leaving. So it's like, come on, man, start somewhere. And then a more positive cycle can happen where you do the right thing. It inspires and makes it easier for the other person to do the right thing, which makes it easier for you and vice versa. And I
Yeah.
think that's the kind of cycle that we want, but it needs to start with someone. Someone needs to start. And Kenzie, I know this is a harder question for you because, like, I know from the women's side, right? There's the stigma that I I think that stigma of, like, if let's say I'm struggling in a relationship and I'm dealing with a guy who doesn't want to work on the relationship or doesn't want to work on himself, I feel like you feel a lot more powerless than the guy normally. Because, like, there's a stigma that's like the guy is the leader, and if he doesn't want it, then fucking forget it.
Mhm.
So I'm sure there's a lot of women who are going through the same thing too, where they're dealing with a partner, a husband who is kind of stubborn, who's kind of like stuck in his ways. What's your best advice for a woman in that situation?
Um, Honestly, this is kind of what helped me was you just got to grow yourself. I mean, it just goes back to even to like Brett. Like In order to be a team with somebody, in order to be able to literally just be one with somebody, you have to fix yourself. So if your husband is being a jerk and not wanting to fix it, you go and fix yourself because that's the only thing you can control. Is that
Yeah.
kind of what you're asking? Like,
Yeah, it's perfect. It's a
that
perfect
would be my advice.
because so like just to tell you a story about this too, because I've been reflecting a lot about like when Samantha left the house way back when, and I remember this feeling right when she left the house. I felt like you, Brett. Like I don't know if you felt this, but I felt like there was nowhere to blame my unhappiness on anymore, right? Like she left the house and I was just in my own silence in my own house. And I realized that like I was still having the same paranoia, the same thoughts, the same worries, the same things that makes me like paranoid and just a shitty person to be around. And I realized like now I didn't have anyone to punch in a way. I didn't have anyone to bully anymore. I didn't have anyone to like use that. So that wasn't a big ego death moment for me to be like, you know what? I gotta work on this because like the fact that she left and I'm so unhappy is just tells me everything about how unhappy I actually am. So that's something for people to think about too. It's like when you're thinking about the loss of your relationship, and yes, you're gonna feel shitty when you're about to lose your relationship, but that shitty feeling can be a catapult to something amazing, to some amazing realizations, but only if you allow yourself to stay there. But if you feel that crappy feelings and you use that to blame some more things, then you are kind of wasting the pain in a way, right? So last thing for people who want to join this program, right? Um, so Kenzie, you mentioned this whole thing around Jeff, you don't have a license. You're not a therapist. And we have a lot of people who worry about that, right? Now that you've seen Brett go through it, what would you tell your, I guess, older self that is skeptical, that is like, oh my God, is this, can this work? What would you tell yourself back then?
I'd be like, give it a chance. Like, um, I think it was probably kind of lame of me to just be like, oh, he's not licensed therapist. What does he know? Or this is just another scheme, or because there's like we talked about, there's that's out there, but it 100% was the thing that was 100% the thing that was going to help Brett.
Hmm.
And looking back, I'd tell myself like, be patient with him, just as I was. Like he's not gonna be perfect off the bat, and it's gonna take practicing for him, but look what it's done. Like I was planning, I was looking at apartments for me to get out. And I mean, this all happened pretty fast within like a 3 to 5 months. I was like, you know what? I don't want you to go. And I
I think it was
mean,
actually it was like so that experience that you shared. So like I joined in November, late November, and I remember it very vividly. Like you crying and telling me not to go, that was like mid-January.
okay, so it was like
So it was like 2 months. Like that's like no time.
yeah,
You know,
it
it's
happened
crazy.
fast. And I don't know if like going to like licensed therapy could have done it that fast, could have really helped him wake up and
Mm.
be like, this is what you need to do. I think therapy, like Brett was talking about, is very good, like one-on-one to like talk about your feelings and maybe they could challenge you a little bit. But what you have is such a structured program that it's something you work on every day and every hour or whenever you have time, but like therapy is just like once a week thing. This is like a constant like boost. And I think that is extremely helpful, especially for people who do maybe feel like they're in that dire situation. But I definitely think that the way it's structured and is vital.
Brett, have you tried to talk to people, other people about the program? And I'm sure people kind of give you eye rolls and like, what?
I'm
Oh,
like my parents
yeah.
probably still do that.
What are the kind of skepticism that people?
Um, I don't know. Maybe I didn't talk to the people that were all that skeptical. Like, I don't know. Like
He's kind of kept it kind of private,
Yeah,
yeah, like
honestly.
yeah.
I'd share it with, I think it wasn't until I really shared it with, like your brother, until like things were like actually starting to change within me.
Mm, mm,
Like I just remember telling my parents like the day that I signed, it was the night before I was meeting with Jason to, or maybe I'd already met with Jason. I was gonna sign up basically. So the night before that, I like told my parents like, hey, like I found this online program, and I'm gonna join it. And like, like my dad's a very skeptical person just by nature. And so he's just like, oh, well, it's like, you pay one time and then you have access to everything for, as long as the business is running, like you have access to everything. And he's like, oh, sounds like a scam. They're just gonna take your money and then who cares what happens with you afterwards? Like they've got your money now. So sounds like a really bad idea. Like,
yeah.
thanks. Like that that's kind of why I didn't want to tell you in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
really
like
like this. So like Kenzie, to your point, I always say this to people, right? It's like if your idea of credentials is a piece of paper, I'm not your guy. But if your idea of credentials is a coach who has done more interviews at a much more frequency than any other coach can do, like no coach can even tries to do what we do, right? Because they can't find enough people who have success. Then I'm your guy. If you want practical results, then I'm your guy. But they don't give you a piece of paper to me for that. So sorry, but like I have more papers than anybody else, kind of thing.
Right.
And Brett, to your point too, right? It's like you pay one time, but if you think about it, that's a good thing. That means I'm incentivized to give you results as fast as possible, right?
else you wouldn't have anything to show for.
Exactly. Exactly. Because like a therapist is like, oh, the longer I take, the more money I can get from you. Deal. Like, yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we're also um we've been very, I think, thankful for the types of clients we have. I think to be honest, I've been very shocked at how many, because when I created this program, I laid out the work and everything like that, and I was like, who would do this? But to watch the number of men who like went through the ego death, went through that humble period and learn from this and make it their lifestyle has been so freaking inspiring, right? Like, yeah, it's freaking awesome. But also, whenever someone asks me about my program too, like friends or family, I don't think a lot of my friends or family knows what I do or the extent of what I do. Until recently, I enrolled two close friends into my program. I think they are starting to feel it. And it's almost like even I don't understand how to express what this program is to people and how much impact it can create. It has created for me until you are in it, kind of thing. But like Kenzie said, just give it a chance because there's a reason there's the hype around it. That hype isn't just like a pyramid scheme. It's actually people who go through this stuff. And that's why we're also able to only hire our clients because people take massive pay cuts sometimes to work for us because like they believe in this in this cause. So give it a chance. So if you want to give it a chance, guys, we have a masterclass for you. It's about an hour and a half long. Link up above right now or down below in the comment section or description. But the masterclass will show you kind of a big picture overview of how the program works. At the end of the masterclass, we'll show you how to apply if you're interested in doing so. So with that, Brett, Kenzie, oh my God, over 2 hours. Thank you so much. This is, wasn't that fun? Right?
It was fun. It's fun to reminisce and